all the people here know of you, but would love to kind of hear just a little bit about you and kind of like, why you chose basically to like, start Sahara, given kind of your AI background. I think it would be pretty enlightening for the audience.
Totally. Hey everyone, thanks for staying here. The context of starting Sahara AI really started back in Q3 2022. Back then I was like looking at GPT-3, which is the model previous to ChatGPT, who everyone knows now. GPT-3 was like released for about like 3 months, and then apparently when any researchers start playing with it, find out it's a hugely different model than any of the previous AI model we have saw, in the sense that number one, it becomes so versatile that it can work on a wide range of different tasks. We start calling them more like a generalist model rather than specialized model. And number two, they outperform average human on many fronts. Translations, summarizations, all things to do with like internet text, for example. So starting there, I was talking a lot with my co-founder, Tyler, that I'm seeing a huge advancement on model capability. But at the same time, I see we are so lagging in terms of the economics around this AI model development process, right? If you look at the current AI model development process, it's pretty much like, hey, I'm an application builder that I have some ideas about what's the product market fit of my application, and I might have channels to these customers that are gonna use my app. What I'm gonna do is to either hire a team of engineers, machine learning engineers, to develop this whole thing 0 to 1 in-house, or I just outsource this to a vendor company to build that, right? And that process basically means like your team or your vendor gonna take pretty much the entire life cycle of the AI model, starting from collecting data to building the model, fine-tuning it, and then to deploy them to some checkpoints, either in-house data or external data centers. And then that turns into a model endpoints that you can use to serve your application, and you start monetizing that. In this process, what we're seeing is there's very little flexibility in terms of distributing the whole process to different stakeholders. It's pretty much enclosed in this whole small ecosystem controlled by some of the company. And these days we're seeing companies like Google, OpenAI pretty much take the entire space. They release the endpoints such as GPT-4, which is so good in the sense that you don't even need to hire any machine learning engineers upfront, or you don't need to talk to any vendor company upfront. You can just simply make some prompts and then start integrating that with your app, become the first prototype of whole application, start monetize, right? So the concern I had that back then was like, if this trend continue to go on, what we're gonna see is there's very little space for model developers, data contributors, and compute providers to survive, because all of the rule books has been made by these centralized AI providers. Also these centralized AI providers are unfortunately also the holders of the super app. Like Facebook, Meta has so many super apps, and Google has so many super apps, which means they control the entire channel, touching the users, collecting user feedbacks, which become the valuable things for them to further iterate on the next model. So if one company or a bunch of entities, they start controlling both the applications and also the AI model development life cycles, then there's very little space for the rest of the individual or small medium business to survive. And I see that was pretty much the trend we are having right now. The lag is become larger right now, and that's why what drives me to start Sahara, trying to disrupt this current paradigm and find another alternative ways to make everyone happier.
All right, it's a very ambitious plan. So I'm curious how you guys have kind of come about and ensuring that like value generated in this kind of decentralized AI ecosystem is equitably basically kind of distributed to the stakeholders that you kind of mentioned specifically. Is there any like technical implementations or challenges that you guys are kind of tackling specifically? I'm curious kind of on your perspective while building out Sahara.
Great question. I think a simpler way to put our solution is we're trying to create a bookkeeping system, a copyright system, to record on the blockchain who has done what kind of contributions during the development process of an AI model, right? Who have collected data and then turn into data sets going to be used by model developer to fine-tune a model In that process, you have the compute provider kicks in, who are providing hours of GPU compute. They also are a contributor. And then this is the first version of the model. It starts being served into the endpoints where the compute provider kicks in again. And then once you have the endpoints, then you you integrate that into your application, start monetized. And this is the first iteration. Then you start having user feedback on the application. You can use the user feedback to further improve your model. Every single participant here, what they have done need to be recorded on the blockchain. And the hard part about this is right now, today, is number one, because of privacy, you cannot push all the data sets and model weights onto the blockchain. So you have to do off-chain operations involving private user data and private user models. That makes the advantage of blockchains basically compromised. Then I think the sort of the trade-off you have to make is how do you make sure the off-chain operation is trustless, right? Something that it's done off-chain, but it's proof, it's verified, and the results of the proof, of the verification or the proof can be pushed on the blockchain. And if this is achievable in a very, with little assumptions about how this process can be done, I think that will be great. And I think this solution is still pretty open-ended right now. The ideal case is to do fully homomorphic encryption where you can just encrypt everything coming from the user local devices and then push the computation on the encrypted data remote on any of the third-party GPU nodes or CPU nodes. If that could happen, I think that will be a great solution with minimal assumption, but we're probably 3 to 5 years away from that. So today, our choice at Sahara AI is to rely on this trusted execution environment, TEE, which you have to make assumption that the providers of these chips, right, these GPUs and CPUs like Intel, NVIDIA, Apple, their TEEs are done in a reliable way. They don't have any backdoors. They don't try to stealthily create any sort of channels to steal our data. That assumption have to be made in order for us to use the TEE to provide a sort of solutions for private computing.
Awesome, yeah. I know we may be biased up here just given the industry we work with, work in specifically, but I'm curious that in the long term, do you kind of see the decentralized AI ecosystem coexisting or replacing the centralized AI, models just in general? I'm just curious on your take specifically.
Yeah, I would say I think the short answer is that we are not trying to decentralize everything in the current AI paradigm. I think that's a very misunderstanding, kind of misunderstanding of when people talk about decentralized AI. For example, compute shouldn't be decentralized physically, right? Data center is a great product. We should try to continuously to improve it. Governance of the AI development process, like what I just talked about, who contribute what, who have the shares of the model that's been generated by different stakeholders, this part can be decentralized. And then economics, similarly, should be decentralized. If the model give out shares to different stakeholders, when the model make money, every stakeholders take the corresponding part of the revenue, right? The revenue sharing mechanisms are great ways of accelerate the process of building AI model because now you don't need to raise cash upfront. I mean, honestly speaking, we are disrupting VC. I mean, in that sense, like we provide a much faster vehicle for people to raise resources of compute and data, to raise capital from a DeFi community instead of going for the traditional Web2 paradigm.
Yeah, interesting. And maybe, I know you touched upon this in multiple of your answers, but maybe to get it more clear for the audience, what are the skills that these stakeholders, what are the type of skills basically that the stakeholders in the decentralized AI ecosystem should bring to make the ecosystem thrive? I know you touched on computation, you touched on maybe data providers. I'm just curious, who are the stakeholders that you see, or at least you want to integrate in the Sahara AI?
Yeah, I think to summarize, we have these couple types of users that we're targeting, right? The first group is these AI model developers who the pain points of them are, like I said, limited access to resource of data and compute, limited access to capital, like from the VC, very high barrier these days to make them quickly raise and collect the resources to prototype their idea. And then the second group of users are these data providers, and basically people who own some proprietary informations in the form of data, but they don't have the know-how of creating AI models. So what typically happens, for example, if I'm a KOL or influencer, I know I have access, I have a business model that I can produce media content, I can sell them to the customer, I can make money. This is how much I can make every month, right? If I have AI, I can scale this up maybe by 5 times. Now I don't have the know-how. The best way I can do this is to find a vendor company to build the AI for me, right? For this group of people, their pain point is they need to find a fair, open marketplace where they can quickly access the AI know-how, which are these model developers, to sort of deploy a version of the personal replica or personal agent using their own data, right? In this process, they can really monetize their data through the AI model power. And then the third group of target users in our ecosystem are basically the consumers of AI, like people like you and me who are using ChatGPT, for example. We are giving out a lot of our personal information in the process of using it, right? For example, we give thumbs up, thumbs down. We upload the PDFs of our bank statements just in order to have a better personal experiences using this application. But instead, we gradually lose the information gap that we have with this AI model. And the next version of ChatGPT or the GPT come out, it's gonna be having some of our expertise and some of our personal informations already. And it might start impacting our jobs and monetization opportunity down the road. So I'm not talking about today you're gonna lose job because of GPT is so good. I'm talking about in 3 years, you might be have to do a much more challenging job because simpler works that are using your current expertise can be already automated by the model. And the reason is just because you have no control and ownership of your personal information when you talk into these AI applications. So these 3 group of users are the major ones that we are trying to involve in our Sahara AI ecosystem. And the first one clearly we're prioritizing is the AI model developers who are, I think, really struggling these days. Because you think about these AI model developers, what's their business model? Typically, they either got hired by OpenAI, Google, or Meta. They do the work in exchange of the shares from this company. That's like they are one of the best business model of this, like a super smart AI model developers, like many of the PhD graduates, for example, from the state. And then the second way is they develop model. They trying to deploy their proprietary model on some model serving platforms and then bundle their model with GPU compute to create a sort of API cell, right? Every single API call is basically reflected into the cost of the GPU plus some margin, and that margin is basically how much their model valued or priced. But what we're seeing right now in the market is it's so competitive that all of these margins are pushing to be really thin, and that give a really hard time for the model developers to survive. And that's why we're seeing the most smart people, they rather choose to be hired by these like centralized AI provider companies. All the graduates from the best CS computer science schools are all going to these places. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I think you touched upon it at the end of that answer, but I'm curious how you're thinking about incentivization just in general. Kind of given, the models, the people who are contributing data, is it, this one ecosystem where maybe let's talk, maybe a Sahara token or something like that. But I'm just curious how you're thinking about incentivization of all these stakeholders.
Yeah, that's a very good question related to why crypto is helpful for AI. I mentioned a bunch of reasons. The major reasons I mentioned just in the previous answers are mostly about how blockchains is helping bookkeeping, the contribution, the trace, and then you can use that to do resource allocation and revenue sharing in a better way. And another major reasons where I see the crypto, or specifically speaking, DeFi ecosystem will be helpful is to provide a vehicle for the AI model developers, especially those great ones, that's already well established in the Web2 space to quickly raise capital. And how this can be done is basically through the bridge of AI access that can be tokenized, right? Let's say today, I'm a very well-established open source model contributor. I have thousands of stars on GitHub or Hugging Face. Now I start creating a new proprietary model, which I claim it's better than Llama 3, right? But number one, I need resource of doing that. So who's providing the cash up from? I might go to the Silicon Valley VCs and say, hey, give me like $1 million. I can build something for you in 3 months. But that it's already take you 2 months to finish all of the conversations and close all of the deal, right? But now if you come to the Sahara ecosystem, there will be multiple projects that trying to do different type of initial model offering, for example. So you can actually create shares of a model that you're gonna build purely based on the reputation and your historically what your other models has been performing. And you can sell the shares to the investors, and then the shares will be further put it on the secondary market, say some DAX in the DeFi ecosystem to be further invested, and there will be upsides about how people think about the model developers gonna do, the model gonna do in the future, right? I mean, this is exactly what happens in Web2. If you think about NVIDIA, Microsoft been selling their GPU hours or leasing the GPU hours to some of these AI model, foundational model teams in exchange of their company share. This has happened already, but in a much more standardized way through equity, but you can consider doing that through the whole vehicle of crypto tokenizations, initial model offering, secondary market investment, and so on. I think that's a huge opportunity.
Awesome. Then given we were short on time, maybe this will be the last question. I'm curious, Sean, this kind of crypto AI, just space in general has ballooned since you guys have started, and you guys were one of the OG projects. I'm just curious if you have any hot takes on the ecosystem as a whole. I think the audience would appreciate maybe a little bit of perspective there.
Yeah, I can go kind of spicy, right? I feel like the projects we're gonna see at this conference, maybe over 60% of them would disappear in 6 months or 12 months. And I think the major reason is just because they haven't thought through what's the business model. Sorry, specifically speaking, these AI crypto projects. I think they haven't really thought through what's the business model of these projects, right? If you are claiming to be a crypto for AI projects, then I'm sure your business model has to be mainly about how's the AI capability or the AI product by itself can make revenue. And I don't think this question has been really well answered even by the Web2 contributors of the AI models as well. If you see in all these open source projects, they're all suffering from the same question. There's no business model for open source project. It's typically end up with the founders of the open source projects has been so successful, there's then VC come to them say, hey, I'm gonna give you $5 million. And then we start a new foundational model company, and we're gonna start creating proprietary technique. We're gonna do go-to-market with enterprise. It's the same story for the past 5 to 20 years on the AI ecosystem. So if you're trying to use crypto to help this AI business model, I think it's two ways, right? One is make the capital comes in a much faster way. This is the DeFi situations I was talking about. And number two is you can make the resource allocation much more efficient than today, right? That's the first part of my answers was talking about. Let the stakeholders give you data, give you compute in exchange of the share of the model, so then you don't need to raise so much cash upfront. And I think these are meaningful ways I see where blockchain and crypto can help, rather than say, hey, let's just physically decentralize compute, decentralize data, decentralize everything. I feel like this is going backward of what all the progress we have made in the past decade. We make so much effort to group these resources together to create advancement in a much fast pace. Don't go back, yeah.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Sean. I think those are very insightful answers, and I think our time's done now. All right. Thanks.
Thanks.